Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And what do I mean by that when I say that? I mean, I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice-a-week long-form podcast, because I want to put the right information out there from the people who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons why I probably fly this American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. Yes, it is Friday, everybody. We are here. It's Q&A day. This is my favorite show of the week that I get to put out, because I just, fortunately get a lot of DMs from people asking for questions about, advice on the industry and everything. And I figured it'd be easier just to create one show every single week where we just break some of this stuff down and put this information out there for people, because at the end of the day, that's the whole point of this show and everything that I do is I just want to help people at the end of the day. I want to put the right information out there to help avoid some of the downfalls in business and everything else. And so we got, and I actually kind of got a secret guest who's going to come on and answer one of these questions. I'm going to bring him up in a second, because this has been showing up a lot lately across the board. But before we do that, Tracy St. Clair, good morning, watching over on YouTube. Sunny Sharma, happy Friday to you. Bill McIntyre, let's go. Good morning, everyone. Papa Freight, good morning. Friday the 13th. It should be a real scary fucking dad joke right there, bro. See, it's one of those cool days. It's Orange is October month, so I fit in right now. Thomas, what is up? Happy Friday the 13th. Truck it up today. You are correct. So I've gotten, and I've seen this. I got a DM last night. I'll have it remain anonymous on who it was from, because they didn't say that it would be okay to share their information. But I've seen this question come up a lot. But the person who's going to come up and answer it and answer it with me today, I'm going to bring him up right now, you guys. It's a special Q&A. I got my man Sean with Denim on the show. What's up, brother?
What's up, Chris? Nice to see you, man. This is awesome. Friday, dude. Q&A Friday.
Q&A. I'm going to change it now. Q&A Friday is what we're going to do. I love it, man. So, dude, what's good, man? What's going on in your world, Sean?
Hey, I just saw my guy Thomas pop up in the chat and say, what's up?
Thomas
hey,
Weirden?
Thomas. How you doing, man? Yeah.
I love it. Thomas is great. He shows up a lot, and I'm appreciative of his support for sure.
Dude, things are awesome. It's there's a market out there for people who want to work, and if you're out there ready to grind, you got a great attitude, there's freight. So I'm rooting for everybody.
Dude, amen to that. All right, Fritz, what's going on? He says Q&A Friday. It's a thing now. I think we're gonna have to make it a thing. So the question that I've got specifically, and I've seen this pop up a lot here recently with the closures of some of these businesses, and this is specifically for trucking companies out there who are like, hey, I've hauled a bunch of loads for these guys. How do I get my money that I'm owed? And this question came in last night, and I instantly thought, I got to reach out to my friends over at Denim, because this is, I need somebody who can come on and actually answer this, because it's come up so much. And it says, I listen to your podcast all the time. You don't know me, but I know you well. What up? We are an OTR carrier, and we have $56,000 in unpaid invoices from, I won't mention their name, but a company that has recently shut down. As you've heard, they are shut down, and it's an account, and I won't list the account name out. But their question is what can I do at this point to pursue unpaid loads? I've seen this a lot, Sean, and a lot of these companies that are factored, and there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of plus receivable or payables out there. And, for the carriers, they're receivables of like, hey, listen, like this one had 60,000+. I've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars from other carriers out there. And they're like, how do I get my money?
Very, very real, very, very real problem. And this is, I'm not a lawyer, whatever, all the, give me the disclosures, put it on the bottom of the screen, flashing lights. This is what I want to say to listeners, right? First of all, we talk about the market all the time. There's too much capacity. And the thing that I think people forget when you see the, weekly news, this carrier, 200 trucks out of business, is that like, these are real companies with real employers, right? Real people, family businesses, and you feel really poorly for them, right? But like, in the same token, same breath, we got to be able to get fuel. We got to be able to pay our insurance. We got to be able to run our truck. And so cash flow is king. And if you don't have it, then you really become in a rock and a hard place. Here are the tips that I would give for your listener. Number one, move fast. So file on the broker bond as soon as possible. I think I'm familiar with the particular brokerage that closed. $75,000, which is the typical amount on a broker bond, is not going to go very far, right? Yeah. And so everyone's rushing to file that bond as soon as possible. You need to as well. The second thing you want to do is go right to the shipper to get paid. This is your best recourse. So same situation, everyone else is doing it. So time is of the essence. Do it as soon as possible. Call from the numbers on your bills of lading. If you've got some receivers paperwork, whatever, use those numbers to try and see if you can kind of cut the line as opposed to getting into like the main line phone number. Yeah. Have for those people when you call them documentation that you delivered the load, invoice ready to be able to send them. These shippers do need to pay. You have a lien on the load, right? So you do have recourse to be able to get paid if the broker doesn't pay you. Yeah. Now, if that doesn't work right out of the gate, first of all, it's going to kind of take a while, right? But if that doesn't work, go get a collections agency, baseball bats. Let those folks bring the baseball bats. Not you. You stay out of the baseball bat business. But like, get some help from a collections agency. Yeah. Hit me in the DMs if you want a referral. We have a couple of folks that we really like. Unfortunately, this situation happens to everyone, right? Yeah. So we can send you some folks with baseball bats and bang ankles and stuff.
Hypothetical baseball bats.
Hypothetical. This is all legend. Exactly. And then the last step, and like this is like the place you don't want to go, right? Is like you've got to exercise the legal system and you've got to get some representation and get some help. This is going to take a long time. This is probably going to cost a lot. So you've got to have enough money at risk here for this to really make or break your business. Now, the good news for carriers out there, and especially your listener that wrote in here, is that the legal system has typically judged very favorably for carriers who want to get paid for loads that they have delivered. Mm-hmm. So if you're willing to stick it out all the way through, there's likely a good outcome for you at the end of the line. But it is not a short time, right, for you to be able to get paid doing that route. You want to be able to get paid from the shipper. That's like your best way to be able to get recourse as soon as possible.
So, I mean, I got a lot of questions I want to ask you after this, John. So going to the shipper direct, because like, can you explain to people? Because like, I see this a lot too. Like, I know what a surety bond is for a broker. Sure. I know what it is, but I like people out there, I think, mistake it for what it actually stands for, right? Because you're talking like file against their bond. Like this particular instance was like 60 grand. And if they have a $75,000 surety bond, that's gone, right? Like that's instant. But what says that surety bond, since they're closed, is even active anymore? Did they cut that instantly so people can't file?
And they might have, right? But you need to be able to show that you went through the path, right? And so if you need to go to step 3 of getting it to the legal system, you want to be able to show that you went through every step through the process. Now, getting paid from the shipper, you can, right? You've got your documentation, you've got your bill of lading with you, you've got your invoice, you know when it was billed, it's been signed, right? Everything is, you can produce financial statements that you haven't been paid and you've got no funds for this particular invoice, right? And you want to go to whoever you had been in contact with at the shipper first, they might be able to get you to the right AP department, to the right person at the right desk. Because if you start from the top at 1-800 shipper, phone number, it's going to take a long time for you to navigate some of the bureaucracy of these gigantic companies, right? I want to talk to accounting. It's like, okay, we've got 400 people in accounting.
Yeah.
So that could be it. That it's time, it's work, and the collections folks are good at that, right? They typically take like a percentage off of the invoice. You got to be comfortable with that, right? So get paid something and not everything, but they do a good job at hunting that stuff down.
Yeah, and it's like, because like, man, I obviously these are not small numbers that some of these companies are out here talking about that they're owed, right? And I almost want to take it back a step further, Sean. And I mean, if you can't answer this, I understand. I'm just kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit, but like, what are some signs that some of these carriers can like identify, like, hey, maybe not all is well with this company. Maybe I should stop taking these loads because, people go out of business all the time, whether it's a good market, a bad market. But I always feel like there's a track record with some of this stuff. Like there are some signs that may pop up, and what can people do to avoid? Because it's like, 50, if we're talking 50, 60 grand, that's not that like, it's a lot of money, but it's not, that's like 10 loads, right? Like, so if they're like, hey, we got this 10 load project here, we need it out over the next 2 weeks. You're like, dude, I got trucks. Let's take them.
That's a baby Benz, man. Like not nothing either. I guess the first piece of advice I would give to carriers is like, get a factor. Shameless plug, okay? Get a factor. Like they are experts in this space. They will do credit risk. They will take the risk on your behalf. They have the recourse, right? If you can find a factor that can give you flexible pay terms so that maybe you don't need to take the full how many ever percent, right, that they give you. If you can drag it out, fewer money, whatever, like there are ways for you to be able to manage your cost down. That's the first thing I would say, obvious, right? The second thing I would say though, is like understand day to pay trend, right? So as days start to slip, I think some folks a couple of months ago, this brokerage that is imaginary that we're not talking about, right? There were reports a couple of months ago that carriers weren't getting paid. And it's just like the writing was on the wall a little bit, even though it never really happened. And take that stuff seriously. It's not a joke, right? Like that once you start to borrow Peter to pay Paul with your working capital, that debt spiral can come super fast. I posted about this on FreightX yesterday. I don't know if a couple of people have seen it, but like, that stuff can pile up really quickly if you don't have your cash flow in order. So like get your spidey senses up,
No, I'm right there with you, man, because like it's true. These companies that, again, like I want people to do their research on who they're working with. Like I tell carriers all the time, vet your brokers, right? Like you need, because like days to pay, if they start getting extended out, or if you see these, because like this particular instance, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm kicking anybody while they're down. It was all over the news that like, hey, payments got shut off. They issued a joint statement.
It was on Reddit. It was everywhere. It was everywhere.
And then it was essentially, hey, no harm, no foul. We're all good. And then 45 days later, here we are. And I think at that time, like, again, your spidey senses that, again, I don't want to kick any company while they're down, but if I think if it's that public at that point, maybe look into, maybe I shouldn't take this load right now, because you just never know, right? And then especially if you're looking at your aging report with them, and even if you're owed $5,000 and it's extended out, and then you see news like this coming out, I would want to be careful, because this is coming from my perspective as a business owner. I've been burnt. I've been burnt out of thousands of dollars. And that might not sound like a lot to some people, but I'm a small business and $5,000 goes a long way. And I've been burnt off of that. And then when I looked back over it, I'm like, shit, I saw the signs and I ignored them. But I also think that there's a lot of information in today's day and age when it comes to like bigger businesses that are out there. There's a lot of stuff that is out there, but when the market is the way it is right now, and some things people are like, I need the freight. I would rather risk it, and again, it's like, you never know, right? Because who knows, they could have figured all of this out and everything could have been fine.
Could have been, totally could have been. But this is exactly how people get into fraud situations, double brokering situations, is because they just like, I need the freight. I need to take the freight. And all of a sudden you're out, right? 10 grand, which that's a huge amount of money if you're trying to run a small business, if you're an independent owner operator.
Payment, insurance payment, all right there if that's one
Big
truck.
time. Yeah, big time. The other thing I guess I would say to folks too is like, stick with it. I mean, there's a lot of rough parts of this market, but if you can survive your way through and you can create some sort of semblance of a cost of living and be able to keep your fleet moving, and when the market starts to move in the right direction, like, I mean, interest rates for us are up 5x, right, than they were a year ago. Like, things are way more expensive now, and if you can still run a good business now, then like back half of next year, you're killing, right?
Yeah. No, I agree, man. You brought up the factoring company thing. What if this company, because it looks like they had a factoring company, do you file your claim to that factoring company at that time? And, like, how does that, or like, what protection does that bring? Or can that bring a sense of ease? Or what would you guys do from your perspective? Say you were the factoring company representing this carrier right here, and that broker had a factoring company. How are you working with them to recover those funds?
Yeah. So here's where the factoring company comes into play. If this gets into the court system, the factoring company might be owed some money as well. So they might like gum up the works a little bit from all these carriers. That's like for sure a risk. I think the other thing that I would say is if the carrier, this carrier had a factoring company, they would be the one to do all this work on their behalf. It wouldn't be the carrier that's calling up, 1-800-shipper to get them to pay an invoice.
Yeah.
If the brokerage had a factor, if it's any, this is a random brokerage we're talking about, not any specific one.
Yeah.
If the brokerage had a factor and that particular brokerage factor paid invoices before the broker got paid for carriers to extinguish the lien on the load, then it is impossible for this broker to really get into this sticky of an operational cash situation, right? So like, if, again, random brokerage got into factoring too late to where they were already extending their carrier payment funds across being able to fund their operations, then it's already, you're in a really dark place, right? So like, strong cash foundation, solid, operating cash positions are super important for these high volume cash intensive businesses.
Yeah. Quick question. Nerf asks, is Denim a recourse or non-recourse company?
Denim's full recourse factor. And that full recourse we use, I mean, you don't want to use it, right? Because you want to keep your clients as customers as much as possible. So we go to bat a lot with shippers. We try to give best advice when it comes to credit risk. We try to give our brokers the best tools for them to succeed in this market. And, we don't want to overextend ourselves either. So it's always kind of a fine line. But at Denim, if you're working with a broker who uses Denim as a factor, you will get paid as a carrier. That is our promise to you. And it's what we do all the time, right?
Yeah. It's, man, I look at this example because it's like, companies that have been around for, I think like what it should like, and I don't want to sound like I'm raising a bunch of red flags, like, oh, you need to, because there's a lot of great companies out there.
Yeah.
But I also think that this has to be a gut check for a lot of people in the industry, especially as business owners. Like, it goes a little bit further than rate per mile. This is what I'll move this load for, right? And I think that gets a lot, especially when the market's bad, right? Like, that gets all the headlines, right? It's that, and it's everything under the sun. But like, when I see this, because I've seen this specific question probably asked about no joke, 70 times in the last probably 60 days, because there was another larger broker that went under here and they were using multiple factoring companies. And it's, again, like this is people's livelihoods we're talking about here, right? And, I a lot of people sit here and celebrate. They're like, oh, this company's doing this much in revenue and everything else under the sun. But it's like, but what are they doing on the back end, right? Like, how are they operating a real business here? And, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? And especially in today's day and age with technology being what it is, you can market the shit out of yourselves as something, and then you're not. And then their days are numbered. And I just want people to be aware, like you guys, you need to protect your company.
But Chris, we're like the FTX trials going on today. You could probably follow all of the news coming out of that trial today. So like this is not in freight, so we can gas those guys up. I'm pretty sure he's going to jail, right? So this like we've got situations where they are taking customer funds, they're buying parties and private jets, and they're trying to pay off governments to be able to get compliance situations, whatever. There's like a bunch of crazy stuff, right, is coming out in this court case. And that's a perfect example of like trying to move so fast. Like, and people were like, wow, FTX is a phenomenal company. This place is going to the moon. US dollars out of business. We're all going to use crypto, right? This was like the whole thing with the FTX business. Tom Brady was like their sponsor and everybody else. And like, it turns out they moved so fast because they were not compliant with anything. So like, if you're not compliant, it's easy to move fast because you don't follow any rules.
No, it's true, man. And there's just so much out there where it's like, I mean, I love seeing people win. I'm not trying to make it, but like, I just also would love for more people to kind of take a step back and assess what they're doing. Because again, like your bank, if you owe, if you got $20,000 a month in payments for your trucks and trailers due here on the 1st, they don't give a shit that somebody's not paying you. They expect you to pay that, right? Like they might be I don't want to say that they're not going to be understanding or anything like that, but this is a very real thing that a lot of business owners, and I've been talking about this a lot on my podcast and, in cash flow, and I'm going to be releasing other episodes here coming up because like, I think this is the biggest separator in any freight market out there is understanding how your money works and keeping you in a better position. Like, again, this isn't tax advice or legal advice, but like working with a CPA, working with a bookkeeper, working with a financial company of some sort to be like, hey, you got $50,000 in receivables here. Why don't we do X, Y, and Z to lower your tax bills so we can free up some of your cash so you can pay off your debt faster? That's one of the biggest things that I've learned in business here is it's like, hey, just because you might make $10,000 one day doesn't mean you get to keep it all.
The thing too is like if any of your listeners, right, owned a multifamily or they own a house or something, and you need to get a new roof, you get a flat tire, stuff happens. It's life, right? And so you've got to have some money set aside for you. And what we talk about a lot with our clients is like the management of their reserve accounts with us, right? So like I think you're a listener that asked about recourse or non-recourse. The best recourse is being able to pluck a couple bucks from your reserve account, don't actually impact the day-to-day operations of that business, and be able to keep moving freight. Because if you've got some money set aside, it's going to be a lot easier to be able to absorb a situation or to be able to take more risk or whatever to try and move that load. If they don't pay, then you're still going to be fine, right? You're going to live to tomorrow.
Yeah. Nerf, just to answer this, man, I don't know if they can actively use multiple factoring companies at the same time. I think that I have like some of the reports that I've heard about companies is they were with an old factoring company. They got a new one and they were owed money from both because they hauled freight for both. I want to be clear about that. I don't know if you can. I don't think you can legally work with two at the same time.
We don't. We wouldn't let that happen. But what does happen though, and I think this is a real thing, is that you've got an outgoing factor, you've got an incoming factor. Maybe you're running some loads with your own cash. Maybe you've got some sort of credit facility on the side. So there's a lot of ways that brokers can move money to be able to make loads, get loads paid. But like, as we kind of talked about, if you're stacking a house of cards and you take a bad hit, then it all kind of can come tumbling down super fast if you don't have a really strong kind of financial footing, right, for your brokerage.
No, man, I think that this is, when you see some of these companies that have been around for 30, 40 years that are succumbing to the market and everything else, it's like, again, is like I said, I don't want to see anybody fail or go out of business. But as somebody who's young in the game and coming up, like I learn a lot, man. And I know that, cash flow is literally everything. Keeping my carriers paid is everything as a broker, because, it's one of those situations where it's like, days to pay start to slip from customers at time in down markets where it was a 30-day. Now it's at 45 days.
Yeah.
And real things happen, right? There's that gap because it's like, you got to pay your carriers quick. Otherwise you see out there on load boards and everything else, like don't take a load from this company. They don't pay. They're owe me this. Word travels fast, right? So I think like the best piece of advice I could give in this one is make sure your carriers are paid no matter what, because you can have 1,000 loads on your board, you guys, but if you don't have one carrier to haul them, you're screwed. You're dead in the water at that point.
No way. No way. And like one of my favorite customers at Denim is Dale Prax, and he thinks a lot about how to fight fraud and how carriers can arm themselves and, better brokers out there. And they started this like Freight Validate service. If you haven't checked it out, I would encourage folks to do so. It's pretty cool. It's kind of his own way to be able to help folks and try and get people from, putting themselves into a really unfortunate situation. So plug to those guys.
Steve Hunt here has a question. Do you have a recommendation for a business credit application that captures the important information like contact people, controller, etc.?
Yeah, let me, we'll put something on our blog on denim.com. Chris, I'll shoot it to you and we can give you kind of the tips for folks as they get into, being able to evaluate, make a credit decision on their own. Because like, as we talked about.
I was gonna say, after you release the blog, man, maybe I have you guys jump back on the live. We could talk about this on the show, because I think this would be relevant information for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think this is the important thing I want, and we'll throw this up, but like, one, I would say we're at denim.com, Steve. You can find us, and I'll send you a connection, Steve, and I'll shoot you the blog when we get it up. The thing that I would say is it's really important for the brokers to be able to have a good grip on this stuff, right? Because if you're taking your factor at their word and you don't have any sort of way to be able to push back or to be able to take your own risk or whatever, as you said, you could be leaving money on the table, right? Maybe there's a safe and too safe situation that you might want to you might not want to find yourself in, and there's business to be able to get. So like, be literate in all of this. Super important.
Dude, I would agree with that, man. I think this is something that I don't think is going away. I think unfortunately there's going to be more of these that are coming out. I think, I view this time like it's not unique. There's been down markets before, but I think this is the first time, at least that I can remember, where it was sky high rates for a long time, and then the bottom fell out. And it's just been, again, man, a lot like, and I'm guilty of this as a business owner. When it's easy and revenue's increasing, you think you're fucking unstoppable, man. You're signing up for shit you don't need.
Yeah.
It happens. You make mistakes, but I think like how you operate in a down market, and I've said this numerous times, you guys, how you operate in a down market, you keep that exact same level playing field in an up market. You got to stash cash. You have to have that rainy day fund. You need to be able to sustain if this happens. And same thing from brokers too. Shippers go out of business. Shippers don't pay their bills. This is why if you don't have a factoring company or somebody out there doing credit checks on the people you're working with, this is the exposure you find yourself in, right? Because again, when you're desperate for business, you turn a blind eye to a lot of these things. And then unfortunately, it adds up. And then it's, 50 grand, 56,000, 60,000. Like that's a lot of money, but that pales in comparison to some of the numbers that I've seen thrown out there. We're talking $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. And it's not going to end well for some people, unfortunately.
No, and all of a sudden you're moving a couple of truckloads of towels from Bed Bath & Beyond, and right, you're having a really tough time, Like, I think the one thing I would echo with folks, if you find yourself hurling towards a cash constrained situation, do not wait until it's too late to be able to get your house in order. Like, get some working capital help before you start shuffling carrier payments around to pay operations, because you're not going to be able to find somebody that's going to want to work with you and support your business if you're already in a really dark spot. So like, see it coming and like get help.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Sean, this was great. I think that this is going to be a topic that is going to be very, very present here for quite some time, unfortunately. But again, I think just putting that information out there of what carriers can do right now is going to be very, very crucial. And I think like, man, this just might turn into a recurring thing where we're like, hey, let's tackle this on and just add more and more information out there for people to follow. So what they could do to protect their businesses. How does anybody reach out to you, Sean? How does anybody get in touch?
Find me on LinkedIn. Sean Smith. Find me at Denim. We're Denim, denim.com. Forgot to spell. Hello, is anybody home? Yeah. But so find us at denim.com. Like find us on LinkedIn. We're on FreightX. We're on Threads. Our content folks crush, right?
Yeah.
We're out there pushing content like everybody else, and we got real people back there. So, get in touch.
Perfect, man. And as always, if you guys can't find him, DM me. I'll put you in contact with Sean and my friends over at Denim. But that's going to be it for today. I know we normally do a Q&A, but I thought when I saw this question come across, I'm like, I got to have somebody come on who knows this a lot better than I do. Because this is something that a lot of carriers are going to be asking themselves or are asking themselves right now. But that'll be it for today, you guys. We'll be back on Monday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central. We'll break down some more industry headlines. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.